Welcome back to another episode of Talking Tarkov. I'm the EarLegAthlete here with,
Hey Dizzle.
and today we've got a couple of topics we wanted to discuss and hear your thoughts and opinions on. So let's just get right into it. The return of the flea market. And do we think EFT is better with or without the flea market? Where do you stand with it? Because I'm still kind of on the fence about it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I am too. I'm split. Half of me is happy to see the wipe, slow down and kind of have some longevity at the beginning, and the other half is missing the perk that the flea market offers. So it's one of those things where I have feelings on both sides, but I think I prefer the more grindy start and, even just the more grindy game overall that the no flea market gives us. So I think I'm
Yeah.
leaning that way. I would be okay if they didn't bring it back.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset with it being gone.
Right.
The one thing like that the flea market for hideout items was really nice, but we get a lot of time to play the game. So
Right.
it turns into, well, do you have the time to go grind it out? So I can see where people who don't have that time to just run raid after raid, utilize their scav and PMC, do tasks and run scav raids, like I can easily see that it's not an obvious option to just go get those items in raid, especially when you need
Right.
14 light bulbs and 11 wires or 13 wire, whatever the wire count is, and that's just for one specific craft. So there is that aspect of it, and then there's buying your items. Like when I run out of ears from dying for a day straight, it's so convenient to just go on the flea market, buy my Comtac 4s or 5s or whatever it is I'm wearing, and just go. But I guess
Right.
that's all an early wipe struggle too. And finding gear early wipe this patch doesn't seem nearly as hard. I've already found several helmets, several rows of ears, face covers, I've or face covers, armored rigs, level 5 plates and up.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, I mean, at least from what I've seen, it looks like they've increased your ways of acquiring things, including more loot, better trades to make up for the flea market being gone.
I mean, they sent
Um,
everybody a measuring tape just to make sure you were getting started.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's something they would do more regularly too if they just got rid of it altogether,
Right.
and I'm okay with that. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good compromise for the people who want the flea market. It's like if BSG would make the game where the flea market isn't as important for those kinds of players, then everybody should be okay with it.
Instead of having to vendor those labs cards that are anywhere from a couple mil to 10, 12, 15 mil, and having to sell them to the vendor with no flea market for a couple 100,000, if they would just rebalance the pricing, that problem solved. You couldn't really complain about that. GPUs, instead of having to sell them for 150K, they sell to the vendor for 1.8 or 1.9, something like that, 2 mil, whatever it is they're worth.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, that's where we would be headed if they do get rid of it. I feel like they're gonna adjust the prices on things to the traders and just, overall kind of revamp the economy if there's no flea market.
Yeah, I can definitely see them balancing it out and making it work. They've already got it to where you can't just buy any ammo anyways. You can't buy any level armor plates and
Yeah, because for so long it was the Wild West, where you could just buy, sell anything,
yeah, Facebook
and it
Marketplace.
yeah, it pretty much was. It was like no matter what, if you had the money, you had whatever you wanted. And then, as more people started complaining about everyone just having high-end gear as soon as they had money. So it's like they were already working on trying to even out
Limit
the
and
playing
yeah.
field. Yeah, I kinda feel like we were headed this way the whole time because eventually it was gonna get so nerfed. I feel like there wasn't gonna be much use for it anyways. And we all know Nikita has always favored no flea market. He was kinda pressured into it because they tried it out, then everybody loved it, and then no one wanted him to get rid of it. It looks like this time, though, people are really open to the fact that there's no flea market and you can still survive, like, it's still
Yeah.
doable.
Yeah. I mean, if you're just doing tasks, even if you're struggling to get gear, sure, you may not be able to get the best armor right away. You can get level 3, level 4, I think even.
Yeah, there's some level 4s you can definitely get at level 2.
But yeah, level 2 traders, even if you're just tasking and losing and still dying, but you're getting stuff done, making progress, you're gonna get to where you can build guns, you're gonna be able to buy better helmets and just have a little bit better ammo. Like you'll obviously progress through the game in a good way. And without flea market, all it does is keep you pacing at a level they want you to be at. it doesn't stop you from being able to level really quickly. It doesn't stop you from doing anything in the game outside of just buying ahead of where you should be. It's what the flea market enables,
Well,
anyways, right? Is buying ahead of where you're at with the
right,
traders. If they balance the economy and then they also keep it to where you're able to find enough stuff in raid to to offset your losses when it does happen. But I understand a lot of players too, which will kind of lead into the next topic. But I understand a lot of players too just struggle with the game in general, and it kind of comes back to Tarkov being a super hardcore game that is not here to handhold.
right,
The idea of Tarkov is to beat you down, and you start to learn from your mistakes. You start to learn from the things where you die, and I hate to say this because like 90% of gaming has always been like, yeah, anybody can do this, right? But it really
right.
isn't something that just anyone can do. You almost have to have that mentality of like, I don't care how bad I get beaten, I'm gonna keep doing it. It's got that Dark Souls hardcoreness to it in a shooter. So
Yeah,
there are sometimes games that just aren't meant for everyone. And
right.
Tarkov is one of those games. And an unfortunate side of that means that with Tarkov being one of those games, there's goals people either set for themselves or within the achievement list of the game, or this, that, or the other. And then with that, it brings out the worst in people,
Oh yeah,
which opens up our next topic of cheats, and where we're at with it inside of Tarkov, inside of gaming in general. And I know we've talked about them before, but with every new wipe, I feel like it's a conversation we'll end up having, just because
well, especially with the engine upgrade, it's like it's kind of a whole new game now.
right now they've got to go through and do a bunch of back work and fix old issues, fix new issues, and it is a process. Like they've said, and we've said, and everyone that knows this stuff has said,
Right.
it's a game of cat and mouse, and it's unfortunate that every wipe, it seems, the problems look so bad. I think, I'm not saying it's not bad because I know it is bad, but I know it also gets blown out of proportion a lot. But there are a few things happening this wipe that sound scarier than they actually are too. Like the
Well,
guy going around. Go ahead.
no, I think what you was gonna say there, the CPU thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just leading into that.
That's what I was going with too. I was just gonna say Tarkov has a big content creation community, so everything gets magnified, but that also doesn't mean that it's not a problem.
Right.
And the thing with, Unity 2022 coming into the game, from what I've heard a couple devs say, is it opened up some back doors that they had closed in 2019, and it makes some of the older cheats that they had patched available to use again. So some of the people, are seeing some of the old things that they hadn't seen for a while, like the invisible players and your walls, and
Flying
yeah,
cheats, the
it just
walls, yeah, speed hacks,
yeah,
stuff you don't see nearly as often anymore.
right. A lot of the cheats that had been patched out or had been blocked are now being used again. And it's one of those things where it's like Battle Eye probably can't just immediately, just go off what they did on 2019 and do it in 2022 and be like, okay, yeah, we patched it this way. Now
Yeah,
let's
I doubt it's a simple port.
Right. But also people gotta remember, especially in a wipe, that's when you have your most people playing, that's your biggest player base right when it wipes. So they're probably letting things go for, like, the first couple months to try to get it all at once and just do a big ban wave instead of, banning one this week and then other the next week and another, because then the cheat providers have time to counteract. And, you know what I mean? They know what Battle Eye's catching, so they can kinda,
Patch this,
tweak
patch
it a
that.
little bit, and yeah, yeah. So it's like if they find not only the actual cheat that's being used right now, but also find other versions of it and then just do it all at once, it kind of gets them ahead of the cheat developers a little bit. So I think that may be a reason that it might take a while, especially at the start of the wipe, to see some ban waves and stuff.
Right. And with the CPU frying hack that's happening right now, I think that's kind of bad terminology to put towards it. They're
It
not
is.
outright frying your CPU.
No.
It is technically in that moment overheating and causing the game to crash out that way, lower your FPS and things like that. But you're not actually gonna like lose hardware because you ran into a hacker on Tarkov.
Well, even not even technically overheating. It all depends on your CPU, your cooling solution. Basically, what it's doing is just maxing it out 100% CPU usage for a long period of time. And with some people, running big CPUs now that, have 300 watts of power running through them. It's like you run that for a couple minutes. Yeah, you're going to see temperatures that you don't normally see.
Yeah.
Like mine right now, I have a 14700K, and if it gets maxed at 100%, I'm going to hit the 90-degree mark, and that never happens during Tarkov. So if I was to see that in Tarkov, yeah, I would probably classify that as, hey, what's frying my CPU, even
Right.
though it's technically not.
Right.
That's
I
just the
just wanted to
terminology I would
clarify.
use.
Right. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah.
clarify that way people weren't as scared. It is
Yeah, because a lot of
still
people yeah, a lot of people were afraid it was, like, legit, like, "Oh,
right.
instantly my
Actual
CPU
frying
died."
your shit. Yeah. Like, oh, I got to replace
Well,
hardware, and that shit's expensive, and it can drive a player base away.
and just to put this out there too, almost every newer system nowadays, the CPU and the motherboard both have systems built into it where it
Yeah.
will not let your
Absolutely.
processor overheat to that point. Like the motherboard will either shut it down, or the CPU has internals that will also shut it down. Pretty much all newer hardware is built like that.
Yeah. It's
Not
gonna be
even
hard to
newer,
fry.
most modern hardware is built like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say
So
within the last 6 or 8 years for sure, if not older.
even more than that, probably the last
Yeah.
10 years, 15 years. But yeah, yeah, definitely anything. Most people are running stuff that would not be able to, be killed by a cheat.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that's something people shouldn't worry about.
And even with the CPU Fryer 3000 guy, right? Like all that stuff. Somebody's already leaked the cheat methods and the cheat dev tools or something along those lines. Essentially, how the cheat operates and how they've created it in hopes that this gets patched and fixed because it's not intended. I guess it's not what they wanted or something. I'm not 100% sure on the motives or reasonings or
From
who's and what's, but from what I've gathered,
Yeah, from what I read, it was the guy who made the cheat leaked the code to the public so devs could find, a way to stop it because he didn't like the way it had been used. But I'm
yeah.
not sure if, it
Right, how
was
much
out
that's
of feeling
accurate. Is
bad, or
it
yeah,
actually
yeah, that
him?
was
Yeah.
right. That was just something that I had read a day ago or so.
And it is unfortunate, right?
Well,
It's never good to see a game get new cheats added, let alone seeing an overflow of old cheats coming back as well. It puts people in the wrong mindset and it makes people think, "Oh, Tarkov is ruined. The game is cooked."
in this day and age for clicks and views, it's like everything is going to get overblown. I mean, we all know, like, we're in the YouTube game, we know what gets clicks, and cheating gets clicks.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it's definitely a problem.
it's
It's a
still a
problem that
problem.
everyone
Yeah.
knows. Yeah, it's a problem that BSG has admitted. It's a problem that everybody in the industry is going through at the moment. So it's just one of those things that, unfortunately, it's if you're going to game, you're going to probably have to deal with cheaters.
Yeah,
That's just
and
the landscape right now.
we talked about it. We actually did an episode Q&A with a game developer, not a BSG developer by any means or anything like that, but somebody that knows the ins and outs of engines, how they work. He's created his own engine, understands anti-cheats and things like that. And we did a
Right.
conversation with
He
him a
had worked
while
on
back.
Unity and other engines similar to what Tarkov was on, so he knew a thing or two.
Yeah, and we had a conversation with him, and it kind of boils down to like if you want to outright stop cheating, you would have to give the game that you're playing kernel level access to your system, and nobody wants to do that because that's essentially giving your mom your iPhone and all the passwords and telling her where everything's at and saying you're good, like
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
or like
analogy.
giving God your iPhone. It's like it's things you don't
Yeah.
want to do, I guess. It's access above access, right? Like it's beyond admin. Every file, every system, anything and everything on the computer is accessible. Any of your information
Yeah.
they want could come from that. So nobody wants to do that, right? Like nobody wants to say, "Yeah, you have
Yeah.
full access over everything I do on this thing."
It's a tough call because you got the developer who probably doesn't want to implement that, because then they're going to be hit with all kinds of lawsuits and things when people get their computer hacked because the cheater found a way to get in through the kernel. And it's like, yeah, there's just so many things that can go wrong when you do enable that.
Yeah.
So it's like, from the developer side, yeah, it could be a problem. From the anti-cheat side, I'm sure BattleEye, they probably would have to deal with a lot more problems also. I mean, you're going to
Right.
be able
It's
to
just
stop a lot more things, but you're also opening the user up to
data leak, breach.
Yeah, being able to get into, not just your game, but your computer in general,
Right.
including passwords and credit cards, and it just opens it up to a whole new level. It's like there's a
Yeah.
trade-off there. You get a lot less cheaters, but you also have a lot worse hacks. So
Right.
what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's so I think it's always just going to be a cat and mouse game until you know, there's no way to access your internal, system files essentially. Like you won't
Right.
random access memory, RAM, people read it. That's what DMR machine or DMA machines are, is direct memory access essentially.
Yeah.
And you're able to
Yeah.
go in, which is where the code goes, and change that to do this. So now in Tarkov, when I load it and it's reading it from the RAM, I'm going to say I have unlimited ammo, unlimited health, and I can fly, like
Right.
whatever. So until we make a machine to play Tarkov on that you can't do those things, you're always going to
Right.
be looking at hacks then too. So, the options to stop it aren't many and aren't great.
Right.
So until then, I think it's just an inevitability we're always going to have to deal with. The idea behind it would be that we can maintain a level of try to maintain the level of cheaters, I guess, try to stop as many backdoors as we can, try to stop as many hacks as we can, but it's just going to be an inevitability that
Right.
we always have to deal with.
It's like keep the game playable enough to where you're only dealing with it every now and then. Because I can testify this whole wipe, I have not seen a blatant cheater on Escape from Tarkov.
Not
Now,
no, I have not.
that's not saying that, there's no cheaters. I know there are, and I know other people have dealt with a lot of crazy stuff. But that's just saying my experience. I've definitely played other wipes where within the first few raids I seen cheaters, and then, you know, multiple more after that first few raids. So I've definitely seen it worse than it is right now, personally. But I understand some people are seeing cheaters, and I feel like as long as I can play the game right now and not see a cheater, you know, maybe one every 10 raids I've seen before, and that was acceptable then. So if I'm not seeing that now, I feel like they're doing what they can. They're definitely combating the cheating, or else it would be worse.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like you talked about earlier, with the new engine update, the cheat devs are already there. As soon as that shit drops and is updated, they're doing what they can to update their cheats. Now
Right.
BSG has to go through, see what they've done, at least try to find out what they've done. That's a process of its own, like figuring out how the cheat even works, and then find a way to shut it down. And I
Right.
imagine they're not just doing that on a pretty small scale either. I would say
Absolutely
it's
not.
it's going to take time, and it's a process, and it happens every
Yep.
wipe. And even when they quote unquote fix the issues or fix the majority of the issues, there's still underlying issues and there's still broken things. So
Yes.
it's going to keep happening, and it's just always going to be this back and forth. What I encourage everyone to do is, while yes, it is nice to know what's happening in the community, and it is awesome to be able to scroll through Reddit or just watch your favorite streamer and like see these things happen and be like, well, that's good to know. Here's how it works. Here's what's going on in the game, at least, like what you can tell from it. Like, that's cool. But base a lot of your opinion off of personal experience. Because of course there's going to be people griefing streamers. Of course there's going to be people, the streamers and content creators, of course those people are going to see more hackers the more that they're on, because they're just on more, right? They can sit down for
Right.
12,
Right.
18 hours a day and play every day. So while they are bound to see more and you're bound to see it through them, rate your experience in your raids too. Like if you're running into hackers, absolutely, like, yeah, let it be known, post on Reddit about it, even like show what happened, but base your opinions off of what you have happened to.
And report, definitely report,
Yeah, always report.
because it does help.
Yeah, we've gotten many a messages saying, hey, your report helped ban a player.
Right. Yeah. And they do
So
give you somewhat of a little thank you for doing it. You'll get a little bit of money now and stuff. So
but yeah, just don't be so quick to hop on and say it's cooked, it's this, it's that, it's that. Form your own opinion on things based off your own, what you've experienced. That's all I ask.
right.
And that's all we do. We look at what's going on in the community. We check things out. We try to keep an open mind about the frequency and who's posting and how often and how many, like, is this their shtick? Is this what they always do? Do they dig and devour and try to find as much information as they can and then just puke it all back out? or is it credible sources that are, actually seeing these things and showing new experiences, not just rehashing old things? So,
Right.
just do your homework and formulate your own opinion.
We've done this enough times, all of us, that we kind of know how it goes, especially when a wipe happens. We know there's a lot of people complaining. There's a lot of people who probably won't be playing the game in a month that are like talking this and that. It's something that we give it time, let it settle, give it a couple months, see where we're at. And of course, like we said, if it happens to you, you have every right to complain. But don't just go off the narrative that it's awful, the worst it's ever been, because it sometimes it's just, it's just being said from people who just have no reason to even care about the game. They just
Right.
want to see the game fail.
They see somebody had posted this, and while that situation that happened to that person is legit, it gets shared 100 million times and edited and done this, that, and the other. And how many times have you seen one clip of the same thing? So
Right.
it's just keep an open mind on things. And if you don't play Escape from Tarkov, kudos to you. You're free to say whatever you want. But if you do play, just base it off your experience in raids and like what you've seen, and then you can compare that to the community and the frequency at which it's being reported and stuff, and kind of see where things are at overall, and just give it a little bit of time as usual. Give them a little bit of time. Let them work on, like they said. Now that this patch is here and they're on 22 or Unity 22, now it's time to optimize and fix things and close back doors and clean up.
You just have a lot of noise out there. You got to kind of sift through it, form your own opinion. And if the game's too much for you right now and you don't want to deal with that, then, that's your choice.
Yeah.
But don't just listen to everyone else and just quit playing because, everyone's telling you how bad it is.
And sometimes that guy that killed you can have really good stats and not be cheating. And,
Right.
um, sometimes you just weren't paying the most attention, or you didn't see the guy just sitting in a bush. Plenty of odd situations happen, and you're like, oh man, I died to such a, shot in the neck, blah, blah, blah. Just check out the account, do your homework. That's really all it is do your homework and pay attention to what cheating accounts actually look like versus, what a regular player account looks like.
Speaking of that, of what you just said right there, speaking of neck, um, there was an adjustment to the neck hitbox recently. I guess we could touch on that for a second.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been complaining, including myself. You walk up to someone fully geared, you being fully geared, face mask, level 5 armor, whatever, and then you just get one tap to the neck.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was starting to become a very normal thing. It's not a good feeling when you have done everything you can to prepare yourself for the fight, and yet you just get killed by a dude spraying and hitting a lucky neck shot. So I
Especially when you
believe
have the protection on that have such a
exactly, you've done
small
everything you
area of
can.
cover. Yeah.
Right. And I think enough people have had it happen that BSG took notice to the community talking about it, and they adjusted it. And from what I've heard, it's completely removed. I haven't personally tested it, but if that is true and it's completely removed, then that's awesome. I am cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely. With cheating in the community and all that, a lot of things get misspread. A lot of information is good, but it's over talked about. It's brought up too much. It's rehashed over and over and over again. I'm not saying new stuff, but like older content being rehashed and things like that. As new stuff comes up, obviously you want to know about it. So follow the Reddit along and just like be involved in the community. Outside of that, it really is based off of your own experience in raids. That's your best answer for how bad it is in Tarkov at the moment. But that's cheating, and I feel like I said earlier, it's going to be one of those things we have to touch on every wipe. So outside of that, and it being a situation that sucks, but we all kind of have to deal with it, no matter what game you're playing, if it's a competitive game in any way. Let's talk more on Tarkov again. And with the flea market removed, it's shown me that while Tarkov could be a little bit harder, it's still not that hard because I'm obviously doing just fine. And yeah, sure, I've got some hours in the game and I understand it. So I'm able to go in raid and not lose every fight and, come out on top. And I know what to loot and what to look for, and then I also use Arena to get cases so I don't have to try to manage as much. I can just store more. So should Tarkov actually be harder though? I mean, I'm only level 20. Should I have 2 med cases, a grenade box, 2 ammo crates, 2 junk boxes, and 4 million rubles, a half a stash worth of guns and magazines and good ammo and weapon parts and level 5 and 6 plates? Like, should I have access to all that this early? Like, does that seem overkill, or should it be even harder to obtain this stuff?
It's a tough one. I like the idea of the game being grindier. I like the idea of people, taking longer to level. I don't like the idea of the game being harder by, like, just more difficult to, like, fight scavs and AI and stuff. I don't like the idea of just getting one tap more by crazy scavs.
No,
So
the
on that
gunplay
type of
pretty
yeah,
similar to
on
where
that
it's at
type of
now, I
being
think.
harder, yeah, I don't want the AI and the enemies to be more difficult, but I do like the idea of it being grindier. I do like
Yeah.
that.
Slower progression is not a bad thing, especially in the wipe cycle stuff. Even if, I assume it once 1.0 is here, they're still going to eventually do wipes.
Yeah,
Um,
what
we'll
they're
have the
saying
option,
is
right?
we're gonna have
Yeah.
basically a server side with wipes and a server side that's, like, permanent.
Yeah. So essentially, think of it kind of like now with PvE, you get to keep that stuff indefinitely, and
Right,
PvP wipes. It'll be similar, but PvP will have 2 modes essentially. So I I don't think, yeah, I think a slower progression pace would be fine. You're still going to have the guys that go out and grind it out and, get above everybody else. Even if that margin is, shrunk down by 15 to 20 levels, I don't think it's going to be necessarily a bad thing. Coming into, the trader leveling, though, I think that would have to be adjusted, just so things don't feel too dull for too long. I think it would take a fine bit
right.
of balancing for sure. But I do agree with you that I think Tarkov should be a little bit harder on that front. It should be more grindy. Um, I think Hideout shouldn't be so easy. I think that Flea Market shouldn't really be in the game. Maybe outside of being able to sell, high value keys for whatever reason. Say you don't run marked rooms or you don't run labs. But they could
Well,
also
see
just balance that out with trader values going way up.
right,
Or
and I think
crash
that's
the
what
economy
they'll
down a
do.
little bit. Bring pricing back down where
Well,
100K for a labs card is a pretty fair price. Or maybe not 100, but 500 or a mil even. But up or down, it needs balance, right?
yeah, and from what Nikita has said, it's pretty clear, we are definitely gonna get a more difficult game, as it approaches 1.0. It's gonna be more grindy. Flea Market is probably gonna be removed. I'm feeling like that's the direction they're gonna go. So I would assume, we'll get our wish, and the game is probably gonna get, slowed down quite a bit as far as progression and everything. And also, I just think that's what Nikita wanted, so he's kinda just
Right.
been testing it out in phases and kinda slowly just taking the game that direction each wipe. So,
Seems like it.
it's yeah, it's gonna be, it's probably gonna be a much longer playthrough, once it's actually at 1.0.
Which I don't think is a bad thing at all. Again,
No,
I think it would be
absolutely
good for
not.
the life cycle of the game in total.
Yeah,
Um, and sure, you could argue you won't be able to get the stuff as quickly. You won't be able to go and get all these things from the traders because you're not getting your levels as quickly. But like I said earlier, you could balance it. And then for the most part of what I have in my stash, isn't exclusively from running PMC raids and just slaughtering everybody. It's utilizing my scav. That's why I'm able to
right.
do half the stuff I do in PvP raid or in PMC raids, because I go in my scav and I loot like crazy. I pick up everything I can. I'm looking for weapon parts. I'm looking for this, that, and the other, meds, drinks, food. I don't want to have to buy stuff. So, of course, while I'm looking for all this, I'm finding high quality armors. I'm finding high quality helmets and ears and ammo. So it just understanding Tarkov will net you positives in your stash every time. So I could go in and I could die for several PMC raids, but then I can go run a couple scavs and reset a big chunk of those losses. Understanding what maps have ammo and loot and this, that, and the other, and if Tarkov does become harder in that regard, I feel like you're even better off finding things in raid because that's going to be how you find things, right? Like it's not going to be, oh, I can go to the trader and buy this and this, and I can go to the flea market and purchase this and this, so I'm good. It's going to be you have to go in raid. So I just don't see it being a negative in any way. I think it forces
No.
people to learn the game more. I think it forces people to be a little more thoughtful with what they're keeping, what they're looting, what they're actually doing in the raid. A lot of people will go in mindlessly on their scav and just like, I'm gonna just do stuff like kill people and this that and like, sure, but how many of those scav raids do you actually survive? Whereas I run nighttime lighthouse and I can pull out millions worth almost every raid. So
Yeah.
a harder Tarkov doesn't necessarily mean a harder Tarkov. It
No,
means
it
a
doesn't.
changed experience. Tarkov, I think, is the
Well,
go
and
ahead.
I think the main thing for people to understand is if the game is slowed down, it's not just slowed down for you, it's slowed down for everybody. So really, it's not like, oh, the game's harder now, so now I'm gonna fall behind. It's everybody's gonna be pretty much at the same level they are already, including right now, if you're at level 30 and you have, similar players, similar people that play similar to you also at level 30. When they slow it down, you're probably going to be at level 15, but those similar players to you are also going to be at level 15. So it's like it's all going to even out because it's going to affect everybody. It's just going to make the early game feel like it's taking longer, and I believe that's something that everybody at least most people seem to enjoy. They seem to like, struggling with that level 2 armor and, fights
Having
actually,
to run
you know
Mosins and shit. Yeah,
yeah, fights actually not just being instant one taps. You get to actually return fire and, it's like
move
it
around
just
and
it
yeah,
it feels better for everybody, and you're still gonna have insane players that are just, you know, above
right,
and beyond
right.
everybody else. That's just always gonna happen. But whatever they do to the game, it's gonna affect the whole community. So it shouldn't hurt one individual person more than another,
No,
you know?
no. It'll just make I genuinely think it'll just make you run more raids. Is really what it boils down to. Is you just
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
be in raid more to get more things accomplished, find more loot, find more stuff. Like instead of instead of being able to just rely on handouts and I can just sell all my shit and buy this, this, and this, and I can go buy this key card and go run labs and be rich. Now it's like I got
right.
to go find that key card. I got to go get this. I got to go find this. So that's a cool feature that I hope they do. I do. Huh. A poop joke.
Haha,
But I do
funny.
hope they add the at least the option of playing, which they have talked about, right? Hardcore Tarkov,
Yeah,
uh,
hardcore mode is coming.
which I think would be
But
pretty
he said
sweet.
that's pretty much on the player. It's hardcore mode is something you kinda have to opt into, and you're still playing with the other people.
Regular
So it's
servers,
like
yeah,
yeah, it's not like a separate mode altogether, but there's like a rule book that Nikita was gonna put out that, is a
yeah, just an
certain kind of
alternate play
rules.
style essentially. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a certain amount of rules that you have to follow if you're gonna play it, but, um, so yeah, there is gonna be that, but I just, like you
Tarkov
said,
being a little more
I
grindy.
think it's
Yeah,
good. Yeah,
yeah,
it's good all around to be just a
a
little
little more
bit
difficult.
harder,
Yeah,
a little slower as far as the whole game, you know?
right. The life cycle of the wipe matters. Nobody mid wipe, how many people fall off, right? How many people just
Exactly.
stop playing Tarkov and say, I'll come back at next wipe? Well, if we could
Right.
stretch that, to where mid wipe is all of a sudden coming up on late wipe now, and you're still level 15 to 25 and you're doing, shoreline tasks still, or customs tasks or whatever it may be, I don't see it being a bad thing because it just gives us all more of the early wipe experience that we all claim to love, and I know Adam and I both love it. I know a lot of players,
Right.
majority of players do love it. But early wipe's great, and stretching that out can't be a bad thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that covers pretty well everything. Unless there's something else you want to add, or if there's something else you want to discuss.
No, I mean, I think that's it. I think just one last thing on that, there's a reason that the majority of players are playing at the beginning of wipes. There's 2 reasons. Number 1 is everybody wants to see the new stuff and, wants to try the new weapons, wants to see what they've done. But number 2, it's because the game seems to just feel better. It just feels like a, more even environment when everybody's rocking low level stuff. So I just I hope that they do prolong it because I just feel like that's good for the game just to have that for as long as we can have it.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's it. That's the last thing I have to say on it.
All right. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking Tarkov. Keep the conversation going down in the comments section. Catch you next week. See ya.